all you fellow game collectors out there, welcome to the first episode of Collecting Game here on the RKI channel. A few years ago, I decided I was going to recollect all the games I grew up with that I had made the horrible mistake of selling. Some great NES, SNES, and Genesis games. All gone. But when I decided to get them back, I knew I had to do it right. A person can have a massive game collection if they go for the relatively cheap card-only route. And even cheaper if you go the no-card ROM-only route. If all you desire is to play the game, this series probably won't help you much. You have downloads and carts and piracy to get your fix. But there is another aspect of collecting that will eat your money like candy and drive you insane. CIB collecting. An indelibly artistic aspect of game collecting is the box art. Artwork that in an era before we had instant access to everyone's opinions on a game was 50% of the selling point. Awesome and insane and almost always a ridiculous lie. Box art is a fascinating aspect of game collecting. So too is the other relic of a bygone era, the game manual. In an age where we have tutorials, in-game guides, and access to the internet at large, info can be found easily. But there was an age where, in order to know the story, or even how to play the game functionally at all, you turned to the manual. These two items form the basis of all CIB collecting, and are my personal base requirements. If you wish to go farther, there are various inserts and registration cards. Not a requirement for me personally, as it's almost impossible to figure out what goes with what loose. However, there are other items like guides and maps or other items that add to the game in some way. In future installments, we'll be getting into these. But for now, let's begin with something simple, but frustrating if you don't know about it. The re-release. The inspiration for this series came to me when I was trying to complete my copy of Mega Man X. Naturally, I turned to eBay and purchased a copy. When I received it, I began finding little oddities, and after a bit of research, uncovered a whole world of frustration, if you're trying to do things right. Thus came the idea for this series. This video, and all of the ones in the future, will go into the nuances of collecting certain titles. Most dealing with box differences, inserts, or even revisions. It took me a bit to understand what was going on with this game. So I figured it was time for somebody to make a video series detailing these eccentricities on a game-by-game basis, and help people avoid some of the confusion and mistakes I've made along the way. If you found yourself asking why anybody trying to set up a new YouTube channel would use such a well-played game as Mega Man X as their first video series, this is your answer. Released for the Japanese Super Famicom in 1993 initially, Rockman X was translated and brought to the North American Super Nintendo the following year as Mega Man X. Released to much critical acclaim for its reinvention of the aging Mega Man series. Credited with excellent art, rockin' music, near-perfect controls, and exceptional gameplay, it locked in its place as a defining game for the SNES. And to this day is still a flat-out blast to play. As a result, the game fetches a decent price, even used. It's not one of the more expensive titles, but it's at least the equivalent of a brand new game to get a box copy. However, the story doesn't end there. In 1997, a North American-based company called Majesco struck a deal with both Sega and Nintendo to re-release several titles on both systems. Using Mexican resources, they reprinted multiple titles and released them at a budget price point. Not a totally bad thing in the waning days of the SNES, but this act produced whole new Majesco versions of many games. Mega Man X is one such game. As far as the game itself goes, Majesco versions use nigh identical ROMs for the titles they re-released. There are a few changes in some titles, but that's for another video. Mega Man X, on the other hand, is the exact same game. For all of you who just want to play the game on original SNES hardware, this version will do fine. This is a perfectly viable solution. For all you CIB and original version collectors out there, this is a bit more complicated. But that's exactly what this video is for. So now that all that setup's out of the way, let's take a look at the two versions. For the most part, you won't see too much difference in price, as most people don't know the whole mess exists, or even what they're looking for. But there are differences, and particulars that go with each version if you're trying to compile a complete copy from multiple sources. Or if you come upon the nightmare of realizing you do have a scrambled copy. Oh god, the horror! The very first difference you find while they are side by side is the box art. The original box art features richer colors, with the Majesco version having a slightly washed out color scheme. Speaking of color schemes, what's up with Launch Octopus being purple? Another difference that is hard to see in photos and videos is the quality of the box itself. If you check out the shine on the box, the Majesco version is more of a matte, having less of a shine on it. Touching it, the original has a smoother texture to it. Something you likely wouldn't notice without having them side by side to compare. The big difference? The Capcom logo has been removed from the Majesco versions. Flipping it over, you see that the washed out color situation continues. The quality is also lower, almost like a photocopy of the original art. As you can see, both have the same barcode. In general, when you're trying to figure out if you have an original or a Majesco version of a game box, look for this information. The original gives you Capcom's American division info, while the Majesco version switches it out for distributed by Majesco Sales Incorporated, 244 Fernwood Avenue, Edison, New Jersey, 08837, 800-825-0015. You'll also note that it is swapped out Made in Japan to Assembled in Mexico. Keep this in mind. And since this is for you fellow anal collectors out there, the designation in the top right has also been changed. Upside down? Really, Majesco? Now let's open them up and take a look inside. You'll notice that in general, original SNES versions use these cardboard inserts, while Majesco versions use the cheaper versions akin to the repro ones you find online. Now for the most part, I'm not going to get into these types of inserts because without opening them new, I cannot guarantee which items came with it originally. But I will tell you that the Majesco versions typically came with these Majesco registration cards. But here are the inserts included in my copies of the game, original and Majesco. Here we come to the most notable difference between the Majesco versions and the original copies. The manual. Majesco re-releases are printed in black and white. Black and white manual, Majesco copy. There are also two more changes. On the back, once again the company info has been replaced with Majesco. The same with the warranty inside. Okay, I have no doubt this is the part you've been waiting for. The differences between the carts themselves. Waiting with bated breath to run and check out your copies, no? Here they are. Just like with the original box art, the label art is smooth and shiny versus having a matte quality to it. The big tell is the Made In mark. The original version will say Made in Japan, while Majesco versions of games will say some version of Assembled in Mexico. But let's say you're nearly blind and cannot see the tiny print, or the image online is too small to see. How can you tell a Majesco cart from the original? Well, that's easy. Majesco carts were made in Mexico, using cheaper materials to produce them. As a result, they feature one huge difference to their original counterpart. And this is the same for all Majesco SNES games. SNES games have a label printed on the back that, as you know, is sometimes damaged because, well, it's a label. Majesco versions, on the other hand, have the label molded into the plastic, with embossed lettering. If you have a game with this weird, molded label on the back, it's a Majesco copy. Popping open the games, this is what we find. The Majesco versions feature a smaller card, with fewer components on it than the original version here. You can also see that the Majesco one is branded with the Majesco Sales Incorporated on it, as opposed to the original, which is not. So there you have it, guys. This is how you can spot which version of the game you have, are considering, or looking for. In my brief search, the Majesco version was oddly enough the harder one to find. But don't take that as a statement of rarity. Now, for all you speculators out there, what's the game worth? It's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. Come on, did you really think I was gonna go there? Anyway, all you fellow collectors out there, learn from my mistakes. And be educated on what you're buying. I'll be continuing this series on a game-by-game basis as I work on my own collection. I'm going to educate you guys and gals on all the stuff I find. There's a crazy amount of some versions of certain games. So be sure to subscribe to see more collecting game videos in the future. Also be sure to check out my related game night video playthroughs for the good stuff on these games. As with the Mega Man X series. As for Mega Man X, you can pick it up on the Nintendo eShop if you don't wish to seek out an actual physical copy. It's definitely worth the play, if nothing else. This video not sponsored or endorsed by Nintendo, Capcom, or Dr. Thomas Light. Until next time, keep on collecting. At least it's buzzsaws on this. That's the Flamingo's natural defense mechanism. Seriously, don't fuck with Flamingos. Oh yeah, right armor. Now we're talking. Punch that shit. Punch that too. And that. Punch them all. Punch them all to death. Never gonna give this thing up. Ah!